Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Such.
And my name is James.
It's the end of game week something.
24, mate.
I don't know the numbers anymore. To be honest with you, I've kind of lost track of the numbers a little bit. Maybe because the Sky numbers are a bit different, and then the number of games the teams have played is different to the game week number. So it's the one before the double,
Or the blank, depending on how you want to view
true.
it. The rarely cited blank double game week is what we're coming towards, which is an exciting one potentially, although I guess we're all once again being drawn towards the same kind of players from the same group of teams. Although I've seen a few people saying they're going to go for single game week players this week, which is quite interesting. We'll touch on a few of them, I'm sure. How was your game week, Suj?
I had to log in this morning to check. I knew it was shit because I knew a lot of my players didn't return from the weekend. And, sometimes it's better just not to know. So ended up on 53 points, James, which actually is a game week rank of 2.5 million, and is as grey an arrow as you can see. 392k to 395k. It's like 3k drop.
No,
1%.
That's a red.
It is a red arrow, but it's as red as I'll take. I think I had returns here. Let's see. Luke Shaw, clean sheet. Surprising clean sheet. I didn't expect Leicester to keep.
Definitely surprising based on the first 20 minutes at Old Trafford, but yeah.
Bukayo Saka and Odegaard returned, and Rashford returned, and then Kane with the assist for Son's goal yesterday returned. I had nothing from Haaland or De Bruyne, nothing from Pereira, nothing from Ben White or Trippier or Kepa, surprisingly. The truth be told, I was going to buy Iheanacho for Martial, but you talked me out of it on Friday, more because it really was a luxury transfer as opposed to fixing any problems. And with the upcoming blank double, as we call it, I'm better off going into this with 2 transfers and the ability to take a hit than I am with having Kelechi and Nacho in my team for last week. And then obviously no returns from anyway. So it looks fine in hindsight. But yeah, I'm glad I didn't make that move.
Very nearly, though.
Yeah,
Very
sure.
nearly.
But I mean,
De Gea made one great save from him.
That's a case of probably another 15 players throughout the game week, right? That you could save very nearly, and that's always the way. Unfortunately, is what happens. Sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. There's arguments to be said. I mean, the week before, when Luke Shaw picked up was the week before that Luke Shaw picked against Leeds, that when United got a clean sheet and they shouldn't have, or whatever. He got his attacking return, didn't he? Ifs and buts might be maybes. They're just they are what they are. But yeah, well done to anyone that captained Rashford, right? Went against Haaland.
Those are the big winners this week. Is those who've got Captain Rashford, well done. And I guess also those who've still got Bruno Fernandes as well. Those are probably the real winners
that double
this
up
week.
Has done really well for people.
Yes, it certainly has. For those who went in sort of for United's 22 double, you've had decent returns out of that. And Bruno's 2 assists yesterday were great as well. And Rashford, I'm not going to tell you something we don't already know. He's absolutely on fire at the moment. There is an interesting spin-off of that in terms of, see a lot of people going to buy Salah this week, which is perfectly understandable. I'm probably going to be one of them, to be honest. I've got Harry Kane and I've got Haaland. Now, I'm not often going to captain Salah. I'm not often going to captain Kane. And really, Salah and Kane could be Rashford and Saka here, couldn't they, from a captaincy perspective?
Yeah.
Like Saka and Rashford play for the 2 other teams competing with Man City at the top of the table. They're more than viable captaincy alternatives for the majority of weeks. So where I think I've often been of the opinion we should have a second premium, and my nervousness always about not having a midfield premium particularly is suddenly Fernandes, Salah, Heung-min Son, Raheem Sterling, perhaps players who haven't performed well throughout the season, suddenly it's like, shit, I want one. It instantly becomes hits to put them in. But there's every case right now to say, can you make the whole rest of your team so much better? You're probably going to put yourself up with a selection headache the majority of weeks. But I'm looking at, say, Harry Kane right now, where I don't want to sell him because he's so consistent. He's done great this season. But freeing up that money is going to do a lot for me, perhaps even sort of game week 27, because the moves that I perhaps want to make this week is going to probably max me out from money and then makes game week 27 a headache. We'd still possibly have to be looking at selling Harry Kane. And he's got Forest at home, and I'm not going to want to. And if I go down the route that I keep Kane, I might not even bother with Brighton and Brentford because my squad of single game week players is going to look so strong that week anyway. I'm sure I will go and get something, no doubt. But in terms of going in heavy on it, I really might not, actually. So it's something to bear in mind from a captaincy perspective. I just can't see where I'm ever going to captain Harry. That's probably more the point at the moment. And if I look right up to like game week 31, where Tottenham have got Bournemouth at home, Haaland's got Leicester at home, United have got Forest away. That even then, I don't think I captain Harry. So it's a lot of money for a very, very good player, very consistent, another return yesterday, but I'm never going to put the armband on. And 2 Sakas might be better than a Kane and a Pereira, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So something to consider.
I get it. I'm in a situation where I've got some shit in my squad, right? Nico Williams, Lewis, and Pereira. Lewis isn't playing again at the moment. Williams will be in and out of the team. Pereira's playing; he's perfectly fine. But if I could beef them up a little bit, then great. But I also have no money. But I have De Bruyne, Haaland, and Kane in terms of a threemium there. So one of them could easily make way to free up money to upgrade some of these guys. And it may even happen as early as this week. Although I'm quite on the fence about what I'm going to do this week.
Yes,
De Bruyne to Salah, captain was well on the cards. But if I'm going to captain Saka instead, then do I want to make that? Then I'm moving out a player with a fixture for a player with 2 fixtures, and maybe move out a player that hasn't got a fixture in Luke Shaw instead. So yeah, to be seen what I want to do this week. There is obviously some European football in the week as well.
Yeah.
And injuries or rotation or what have you sometimes gives us a bit of insight into what we might want to do at the weekend.
I think particularly for the Liverpool assets, like do wait. They play Real Madrid tomorrow night. If you can, please do try and wait until after the Real Madrid game. For example, Nunez might be injured. And he would probably be the obvious, if I was to downgrade Harry, he's probably Nunez right now, and then move that on to say sort of Tony for 27, for example. But yeah, I'd wait on the Liverpool assets till after tomorrow night. Now, I think probably from Wednesday, you're probably good to go, unless you're kind of dependent on Man City players playing in your 11. But if you were to lose one through injury, then I think it's hit to move on if you felt you needed to get a full complement of 11, which we've said in the past, even with the doubles added this week, I don't think it's a necessity to have 11 players this week. It's definitely not. You know, I'm very much against free hit this week, but as ever, like, play it your way. And I know a lot of people listening will free hit this week. Tom Cantle, our friend from Who Got the Assist, he's going to free hit this week. He's in the top 20k at the moment. And he put a really nice thread out at the weekend explaining why it's best for him to free hit in 25. He's like really stocked up on Brighton and Brentford assets already, for example. And it doesn't make sense to be getting them out to cover this week to get them back in, for example. So it's right for him. Therefore, it will be right for some others as well. I'm not big on it, though. I'm really, really like it wouldn't go through my mind for a second, personally, to consider using it this week. For you?
No. To be honest with you, like Martial, I've got 3 United in Shaw, Rashford, Martial, and 1 in Newcastle in Trippier. I've got no one from Brentford or Brighton in my squad. Rashford, I've got too much value built up in. Trippier, I've got too much value built up in, and I'm going to want them the other side. So they're going nowhere, which means it's Shaw and Martial are the ones I could move on. And Martial, I have to move on anyway. He's injured, he's not playing, and so on. So then I'm down to, it's only 1 or 2 transfers, and I've got 2 free transfers. For me, no, definitely not.
Agreed. My game week was not as good as yours, Suj. I scored 1 less.
A whole point less.
A whole point. Yeah, well, that's because Wilfred Donto decided to get booked after the final whistle. Otherwise, we could have called it a draw. My bravery in picking Bueno over White and Botman paid off to the tune of 1 point. I suspected it probably wouldn't matter either way, whatever I decide to do. But my returnees were the same as you, Serge. Saka, Odegaard, Rashford, Kane. And for your Luke Shaw's was my David De Gea, right? Same week, basically. So as I said, it was the Rashford captainers who won out. I think De Bruyne to Salah is highly likely for me. I'm considering as much as a -8 this week. Nunes is on radar. I think I want to change the goalkeeper. And the more it's gone on, the more I'm thinking about Jordan Pickford, because he does give me a goalkeeper for game week 28 as well. Whereas none of the other doublers can guarantee that for me right now. Wolves, Liverpool, and I've not necessarily got 28 fixtures. One of them will, but I don't know which one at the moment. And I've already got 3 Arsenal, so it rules out Ramsdale. So thinking about Pickford quite a bit, because I don't really want to be looking at Danny Ward against Arsenal. And I may go for a Liverpool defensive player as well, either Trent or Virgil van Dijk, subject to what I spend elsewhere. So it might be that I could just go De Bruyne, Salah and even roll the other transfer is a possible. But it might be that I'll take as much for a -8. But the real focus for me will be on Liverpool players. Doublers wise, I've obviously got 3 Arsenal already, White, Saka, Odegaard. I've got Bueno as well. Definitely going to play him, and that would have been the case even if he didn't start yesterday. I know there's going to be some minutes in there somewhere, so I'll definitely play him. So at the moment, I've got 11 already lined up for this week. I think Aki's certainly on the chopping block for me, because that could easily be 10, couldn't it? I think City players just naturally could be rotation risks. In any case, they play Leipzig Wednesday. Then obviously they're playing Saturday evening, early evening against Bournemouth. So we had some rotation last week. We could expect a little bit more this week. Maybe if Aki doesn't play on Wednesday, that might be the sort of thing that makes me think, okay, maybe he'll play Saturday. But second guessing Pep is not great. And I think he's gonna have to get binned for me anyway, Nathan Aki. De Bruyne's on the chopping block. And as said, I'm very reluctantly considering selling Harry Kane. And I won't rule out selling Haaland either. It's the same thing. It sounds ridiculous. But there's every chance for the next 4 weeks that I'm not going to captain him. Every chance. And therefore, I'm losing every time he returns anyway. So do I want to be brave and take him on? I'm going to captain almost definitely Saka or Salah this week. 26, I think subject to what Arsenal do against Everton, it's one where Haaland's got Newcastle where I'd really like to take on with Arsenal at home to Bournemouth, for example. 27, he goes to Palace, Haaland. Rashford's got Southampton at home. So it's another one I feel like I want to take it on. And 28 is obviously highly unlikely to have a fixture. So as mad as it sounds, and I can't see me doing it because I've had him since game week 1. So the value's obviously there. And I know I'd almost definitely want to go back. I'm not ruling it out. It's probably more, can I come to the conclusion that I think Harry Kane outscores Haaland over the next 3? And I think it's probably a no. So
yeah,
unfortunately, reluctantly, I think there's every chance I'm going to end up selling Harry Kane this week.
Should we talk about some of these games?
Yes, let's do that, Suj.
A few on the weekend, all 10 fixtures completed. Starting with Arsenal away at Aston Villa. They managed to get themselves over the line. It looked a little bit ropey for a little while. And it looked like the difficult away day that we did predict for Arsenal. We didn't think it was going to be easy by any stretch. They made hard work of it, but they did get over the line in the second half in the end, and they'll take a lot of confidence from that, because that's the kind of thing that champions do, right? They win even when they're not at their best, and they get the points on the board, and then
they well deserve to win, Serge.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, but there was moments where they weren't ahead.
Oh no, of course. Listen, it's gone right to the end of the game, right? And obviously the winning goal was fortuitous.
If they'd ended at 2-2, despite deserving to win, you're like, oh, that's real momentum issues. But the fact that City then didn't go on to win afterwards, it makes it an even bigger win. And I think the confidence they'll take from that is that it's what champions do. When they need to get over the line, right at the death, they can get over the line. And they did.
Yeah, the swing at half time was looking like you're thinking, oh, shit. From going from sort of 2 weeks ago to thinking Arsenal might have gone into this game sort of like 8 points clear, to be in a position of going, shit, City are about to go 3 points in front, and technically it would still be in their hands. But I think what we've learned historically is once you go behind to City, you're in massive trouble.
It's hard.
You're in massive trouble. So it was, I don't know, technically, obviously at the time, even they'd have been thinking City will win still behind, but obviously had the game in hand, so still definitely in their hands. It worked out very well for them. The first half performance was iffy, which I think I can understand a little bit. I spoke to you on Friday's Patreon pod about no matter what the result against City, Villa was going to be a challenge because of the tight turnaround. And there were certain things in the first half, like the 2 Villa goals, very strange goals for Arsenal to concede. Watkins doesn't take a great first touch on the first goal. He obviously finishes it so well. He's now got 4 in 4. But it just feels like go back 4 months and Saliba's straight into him going, no, you're not having that. Kind of backed off and let him do what he wanted. And I spoke last week about Saliba not being to the standards that he was at earlier in the season. And the second goal, Villa just played through them so easily. Now, I know Arsenal fans will probably point to the fact that Thomas Partey wasn't playing, and absolutely understand that. But yeah, there's certain vulnerabilities have crept in a little bit over the last few games. But I certainly wouldn't be selling Arsenal defensive assets this week. And I think key to that would be that the second game in the double is Everton at home. And you'd very much fancy that for a clean sheet at the moment. If Arsenal defend set pieces properly, you would fancy that for a clean sheet against Everton. Offensively, second half, really good. Odegaard in the second half was back to breathtaking best. Everything went through him. He created 7 chances in the game, which was, I think, was the most of players on Saturday in all the 8 games on a Saturday. I don't know if Bruno got near that yesterday. I don't think he did. But he was purring. I'd said to you Friday, he's a little bit underwhelming. I'm not bothered about the fact he hasn't returned. It's just that his performances actually have not been to his brilliant high standards. He grabbed that game in that second half. And when he's playing really well, Arsenal, I think, naturally do. There is a common theme behind that. To the extent that I was watching the second half thinking, yeah, do you know what? He's probably their most important player here. He sets the tempo. When he's at it, he's not just a creative player, he does things really quickly as well. Yeah. Which I think speeds up the rest of his teammates as well. So I think, look, going into the double, Odegaard, Saka are still the best 2 offensive ones to have. Those who are obviously got Martinelli have ended up with a massive little bonus at the end of that game.
Yeah, it's happened so often. You start the game annoyed because they're benched, so you're thinking, give me more 1 point than now, and it quite often happens that you do end up with.
No, you know, after time you think, don't come on. My first sub will probably outscore it, and that's probably first game of the game week. That probably is what a lot of people are thinking. The XG on that goal, by the way, you have to factor this in. You're thinking when you're looking at stats going forward, depending on where you look, it was either 0.98 or 0.99. I think half the Arsenal team was celebrating before it went in the goal.
I think he was just rotated for this game. I don't think he's lost his place. I think it might just be a bit of fatigue, switch it around a little bit, get Trossard some minutes. But I don't think that he's lost his place and we're going to see Trossard starting games.
I agree with you, but all I would say is, obviously, in what's coming up, it's Leicester Saturday, Everton Wednesday, Bournemouth the following Saturday. With those 2 home games quite close to each other, and their fixtures, they'll obviously expect to win whether Martinelli plays or Trossard plays. You can expect to see rotation again, whether it's the Everton game or the Bournemouth game. So if I was a Martinelli owner and he played twice in the double, I'd be very concerned about him in 26, for example. So I think this is part why a lot of us moved away from Martinelli, was knowing this problem is coming and this isn't going to be the only time it happens. I agree with you. I think he's first choice still. I think it was just a natural rotation. White came back in, obviously, at right back, which was something we thought would happen. It was no surprise. Tomiyasu is a 1v1 defender who I don't think will be needed in too many of these games. There is a case to say that against a player like Harvey Barnes next Saturday, that Tomiyasu might play again. I noticed Gabriel's price. It either went down last night or is possibly going to go down tonight. I'm not sure what the thinking is behind that. People think I've got to get 3 Arsenal attacking players because they've gone on a run of no clean sheets and sort of 4 or so.
Yeah, I think it's more that. Or the bots, James. The bots might be out in force.
But it felt like a lot of people ahead of the 23 double, a lot of people were going from White to Gabriel or Saliba to get the security of the start. So I find that one a little bit strange, actually. But yeah, I think if he was free hitting this week, definitely be Odegaard, Saka, and then it's take your pick from whatever your third is. I certainly wouldn't be going Trossard at the moment. I'd probably be very tempted if I was free hitting this week to probably go and Ketcher.
Yeah, he would be my third Arsenal choice. Like because I've got Ben White, there's no way I can go from Martial to Nketiah. I'm locked and loaded on Arsenal. But he would be my third, would be Nketiah, to be honest with you. He had chances.
Yeah, he did.
A lot of chances against Man City as well, when he could have scored even a couple in that game. He will score. It might be frustrating, but he will pick up some points this week, I think. So Nketiah would be my third as well.
Worth saying on Odegaard as well, despite only getting the assist in a game that had 6 goals, he was the highest on BPS by miles.
Yeah.
And that's despite the fact, did you see his message?
Was he 3 BPS or was he 2 BPS? I thought he was 2 BPS.
3.
You're right.
3 bonus points. So
he was. He beat Watkins. I thought Watkins was 3. Yeah, you're right.
That's always the beauty with a player like him. We've had this a lot with KDB in the past, where because of the amount of creation, now it's obviously the 7 big chances that massively impacted, but he doesn't need to haul, if you will.
Reece James is the other one that creates a lot of chances and then sweeps up the BPS.
Yeah, if Chelsea can convert those chances. Not that he played at the weekend, obviously. No. Just a few notes on Villa. Obviously, the Emi Martinez. I mean, obviously, I wasn't laughing because I was like, "Oh fuck!" when it went in, from a Tottenham fan perspective. But it was funny at the same time because him and Arsenal fans have a very much I was going to say a love-hate relationship. I think it's just a hate relationship now because Martinez said some daft things about Arsenal since he left and stuff. I don't suppose any of the Villa listeners, you know who you are going to come tagging me about how world class he is when he's just conceded 8 goals in his last 2 home games. That's bad for Villa. Winning the last 2 home games 2-1 and lost them both 4-2.
Yeah.
So this one is more understandable than obviously the Leicester game. Villa will still get some interest, I think, from FPL managers coming up. Everton this week, then Palace, then West Ham, and obviously Bournemouth, kind of the pick of the fixtures, if you will, almost in game week 28 as well. Cash and Moreno played in the fullback positions. If I had to go for one of them 2 right now, it'd be Matty Cash at 4.6. I think Moreno and Dean, I'm not sure where I'd stand with that. I'd probably still go Tyrone Mings, to be honest, at 4.3 for a little bit more security. I think Buendia might be one that opens up interestingly for people. The only thing on Buendia at his sort of value, 5.7, I can see that if people go there and they think, all right, he's carrying me to game week 28, it might get to game week 27 when Villa go to West Ham and be looking at the likes of McAllister, March, Mitoma. I'm thinking, oh, fucking hell, it's so easy to get one of them. So I'd be cautious of that. And Watkins obviously scored 4 in 4 now, 7.2. There's no reason to think he won't continue to start. And with those fixtures, he'll certainly get some returns. And we always thought that we'd get to this point and people would be all over Villa. The reason I think people won't is obviously the doubles for other teams has obviously changed the perspective on that now, but very much a team worth keeping in mind. And it might be that making moves like Watkins might open up doors for you, subject to what you've got in your team. So perhaps if you don't have a premium midfielder, something like Kane to Watkins, thinking about building to 28 might open you up for, I don't know, Kulusevski to Salah, for example. So I still think Villa players will work for some this week. I just like saying with Mings, I'd find it difficult to buy Mings over, say, Kilman. Even though it's 2 away games for Wolves, against Fulham and Liverpool, I'd be thinking, I want a doubler, right? It'd be the same people thinking Tarkowski over Mings, same price now, for example.
What about Brentford 1, Crystal Palace 1? I thought, and you did too, that this would be a home win, fairly routine for Brentford, being that they were on such a long unbeaten run and in good form and had home advantage. And they still are unbeaten. So we should add that. They didn't lose the game. But Palace will be pretty happy to get a point as well, considering that the relegation battle this weekend, mate, was brutal. A lot of teams in and
Yeah.
around picking up points.
Well, there was some mad results against the stats, right?
Yeah,
There were
I
a
mean,
few teams like Fulham and Bournemouth for another, and
winning.
Southampton. You wouldn't have
Yeah.
expected those results, all those teams to win 1-0 away from home.
No, and it made it all the more difficult for even West Ham, obviously losing at your place yesterday. So, yeah, I think Crystal Palace will feel like it's a good point to chip away and keep that distance that they've got between them and the drop zone.
Yeah, I mean, their fixture run we documented kind of up until sort of the double, if you will, and possibly even longer, is pretty rough. So if they can keep ticking along, great. However, obviously the fact that Vitaly Janelt equalised so late in the game will obviously be very disappointing for them. I don't understand why Eze obviously came on and scored. I don't understand why he's not playing. I don't understand. It's like Zaha's got injured and now he's out the team as well. You've taken all the kind of creativity and beauty in what Palace can do out the team, become functional. And I don't know if he's decided on functionality, Vieira, because of the fixtures that they've got. But I think they could have found the place for Eze where to be the creative player for them over this period might have helped. Whether he'll come back in the team to be confirmed now. Liverpool at the weekend, he may go, let's be honest, attritional again with his team selection. That's the term that Mitrovic, our Palace correspondent, would use for people like Jordan Ayew, right? Attritional. But certainly benefited by Joachim Anderson being back at centre-back. Sambi Lokonga, who's obviously on loan from Arsenal, played in midfield. Finding a central midfield partner for Decore this year has been challenging for them. They've really struggled with that. So Lokonga may get regular starts going forward now. Tyreek Mitchell went off injured with a knock towards the end of the game, which might be worth keeping an eye on because who are Crystal Palace playing this weekend, Suj?
You just said Liverpool. No.
Well, yeah, it's possibly going up against Mo Salah, right?
Yeah.
So if they've got to put someone out there who's not comfortable at left back, might add to the Mo Salah appeal going into this week. So that's something to keep an eye on. Although doing a bit of digging on it, I couldn't find a lot in terms of what the knock was. But Palace fans aren't happy with the way Mitchell's been playing. But I think defensively, 1v1, he's a pretty decent defender, personally. For Brentford, switch to the back four as we would expect in a fixture like this. It's back five if they're playing a big six team or Leeds. So we could have expected the back four switch. It's now the longest unbeaten run in the league now that Newcastle lost. So 11 unbeaten. That's incredible for them, but disappointing. More good fixtures to come after, obviously, the blank, Fulham at home, and then the double. You haven't got any Brentford at the moment, have you, Suj?
I have not.
No, same as that. But what would you say to people who have?
It depends on your.
You want to keep, don't you?
Yeah, that's the thing. If you can get away with manipulating others, then I would try and do that. But also, you can make the same case for Brighton, James. If you've owned Brighton, you want to keep. You don't want to.
And you don't want to sell Rashford or Trippier, probably either.
You're in Tom Cancel territory, basically.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I understand it.
So, yeah, I'm kind of grateful that I don't because it takes a decision up. But it's not a decision I have to make basically right now. I can go back to them for more later.
No yellow card for Tony, which means he's absolutely certain to get a yellow card against Fulham in game week 26, isn't he? He's on 8 yellows as a reminder. 10 equals 2-game suspension. He's absolutely getting booked against Fulham. I'll bet money on it. I bet he scores twice and gets booked and leaves it so awkward for everybody going into 27. I think if he escapes the booking in that week, a lot of people want to get him in and captain him, I think. Despite the fact it's 2 away games, it is still Everton and Southampton. But we should consider that Everton have obviously improved a lot defensively and will naturally do under Sean Dyche. And Southampton finally kept a clean sheet at the weekend, so we should have eyes on them as well. But yeah, Tony, Raya, me, Rico Henry, perhaps even Mbumo, there'll be a lot to consider after their blank game week. I think Tony, though, is particularly the one, and people have got obviously value in Ben Mee. Don't really want to sell it, but it might be one, say if you've got Ben Mee, might be worth considering if you're coming off and then going back for Henry or Ethan Pinnock instead. Pinnock looks like he's regularly going to play alongside Ben Mee now, whether it's back four or back five. And these upcoming fixtures for Brentford should be a back four, I think.
James, guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back?
XG philosophy tweeting about Brighton.
The XG Kings are back. The XG Kings are back. An XG of 2.2. I didn't see this one come in, but we know that it definitely used to happen pretty regular under Senor Potter. And it does happen every now and then. Brighton do everything they can to not win a game of football somehow by not putting the ball in the back of the net.
I mean, this one, the chances they had in the second half, my goodness. I don't think any Fulham fans coming away from this game, that was a thoroughly deserved 3 points. It very much was smash and grab. And unlike sort of the winners for Bournemouth and Southampton, I mean, literal smash and grab as well, with near enough the final effort of the game as well. Beautifully taken by Manor Solomon, by the way.
2-2 for him, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously come on and scored against Forest as well. He's only 4.9. And I know Dara Cohen, our Fulham correspondent, was keen to say when he was on COTC the other week, keep an eye on him. Like that moment might be coming for him. He's possibly been held up quite a bit because Willian has been playing so well on that side for Fulham. Cordova-Reid played higher position at the weekend because Mitrovic missed out again. And I think, you haven't got Mitrovic, have you, Suj?
No.
He's really becoming a pain in the arse for people, because I think Marco Silva said on Friday, he said, he had a problem in the warm-up versus Forest, and then he played 80 minutes. And I'd said, I think he's probably been taken out of context, because surely if he played the 80 minutes afterwards, then there isn't a big problem, right?
Mm.
But I think we've probably got to consider now that he's not been fit for 3 months. And it's also hampering his returns. We can't look... When I think the problem first arose sort of around about game weeks 14, 15, he was smashing out the goals everywhere. So you wanted to take more of a chance on him. But other than the game against Palace on Boxing Day, where Palace ended up going down to 9 men, the returns are hardly there. And you're going week on week now. Is he fit? Is he injured? Is he fit? Is he injured? Now, if you get clarity this week, if you own that he's going to start against Wolves, then I'd probably keep him, because there's every chance you've got bigger problems in your squad than that. But I would definitely be looking to move him on straight afterwards. They've got Brentford away in 26, Arsenal at home 27, Liverpool 28 is kind of 40-60, whether it would go ahead at the moment. And in any case, they're unlikely to double in 29 as well if you're looking to carry through. So Fulham players just generally, I think, are becoming expendable. That said, defensively, improving massively. 4 goals conceded since the World Cup. This idea that they were a really open team prior to the World Cup seems to have changed a little bit. But I also think that is affecting them a little bit offensively. So Mitrovic should be waiting on news. Do you know what? If Silva said on Friday, he's 50-50, we don't know, I'd consider binning him off, because I'd think, I'm going to sell him afterwards anyway. So I'd arguably just get it done.
Yep.
And accept what would be at the weekend. Particularly, obviously, if you can get that to Nunes, for example, if say Nunes is past fit, it might feel more justifiable. But I think the problem that Mitrovic owners will have is they probably got it lined up for Tony. So you obviously ain't making that move this week. So it is a little bit of an awkward one. Watkins might be the kind of price point alternative. Maybe João Felix, who a lot of people gambled on at the weekend's another one that will obviously cover off 28 quite nicely. For Brighton, Estupiñán owners will obviously be delighted with their clean sheet. And not only just clean sheet, but 62 points, 62 minutes as well. So very nearly was the 1-pointer. I don't think we should be concerned about that. I think he's, as we've covered plenty of times, does look like he's going to play the majority of the games now. Alexis McAllister at 10 again is, as mentioned last week, really, really worth watching. And he would probably, if I go into Brighton in 27, probably the priority for me now in terms of positioning versus Matoma and March.
He had the highest XG, according to, it depends where you look, but according to the Premier, the FPL site.
Isn't it nice? We've got XG on there now.
Yeah, McAllister was the one, because I was keen to see who had this XG that Brighton had of 2.2 or whatever. Looking to see whether or not it was McAllister. McAllister at 0.6. Evan Ferguson came in at 0.5. So it was the two of them that had the about half of the XG that Brighton had. I'm with you. I think McAllister is the one that I would be looking to as well. I really wish I could actually go from Martial to Evan Ferguson this week, because that solves a problem for me. But obviously it's going from a player with no fixture to a player with no fixture.
But it might solve a problem for you, because it might enable you to pump something else into the team, right?
Yeah, I haven't ruled it out, James, that I would just do it, suck it up. I'll end up with 9 players this week, maybe, so be it. But it solves me a problem further down the road. So Evan Ferguson definitely on radar, and McAllister as well. McAllister's
all you have to consider, like Ferguson, I think is a potentially great asset at 4.6. Obviously, no fixture this week. Danny Welbeck's out at the moment. I think for me, now that he's back fit, he'll get favouritism over Undev. Could we get some rotation? Yes, sure. But I think you'll get favouritism. But I don't quite know how that's going to work with Welbeck now that McAllister's playing at 10, because it did have a little spell where they were both playing before McAllister came back from the World Cup. So I think it probably is just one of them now. So information on Welbeck's injury and how long will be quite important, because you could quite easily see 27 then playing one each, for example. What you also have to consider is look at 27. So if you go for a Ferguson and then you shove up, I don't know, let's say hypothetically this week, Andreas Pereira up to Cody Gakpo, for example, then look at 27 and ask yourself, will you even be playing Ferguson? If you've kind of bulked it up where you're set for a 3-5-2, for example, who are you actually going to play Ferguson over? Considering all those other guys, all the big teams have good fixtures in 27. We've covered this lots. You know, Liverpool go to Bournemouth. If you think like a Gakpo is going to start there, that's going to be really awkward to leave out. You probably would. You'd probably be sitting there going, I hope he gets rotated this week and I'll stick Ferguson in. But just consider that. Just a couple more brief notes before we finish on this one. The Brighton Palace game was obviously arranged for 27, and now there's a rail strike. Which is why, if you remember on the morning that it was announced, Serge, I said to you, I think they will wait until after the FA Cup 5th round games and do it really short notice because of a potential train strike, which can be called at 14 days notice. They didn't wait, did they? And by the way, I agree with them not waiting in terms of a notification to fans' perspective. We think there's several reports going around now that are suggesting that both teams want the game moved to the night before. So it's currently scheduled for the Thursday night in game week 27. We think they're trying to move it to the night before on the Wednesday. If for some reason that can't happen, the game is at risk. But I think that's probably the most likely scenario of what will happen. Palace fans don't need to pre-book trains to go to Brighton. But basically, because of that fixture, unless they put Palace fans on coaches, it's really, really a big risk to do that without trains. It's essentially the point. And I've spoken about the Amex before. It's unlike any other stadium in the Premier League. It needs trains, essentially, to function properly. Now, my team went there in late September or early October and got a coach, right? When there was train strikes. But from a security perspective, other people who were going into, say, town centre of Brighton and getting buses and stuff, it's fine. It's not a problem. Palace, not so much. It's also complicated by the fact there's a Fatboy Slim concert that night in Brighton as well. Obviously, he's a Brighton fan. I'm sure he wants to be at the game, wouldn't he?
Oh, who knows?
So there's I think the most likely scenario is it will still go ahead from an FPL perspective, without overly confusing it. And just on Fulham, Paulinho booking, he's on 9, which for us who own him in Sky still is great. We captain him on Friday night against Wolves and then bin him. But he's a big player for Fulham, very big player. And if he's going to be suspended for 2 games, which is almost certainly going to happen at some point, that's problematic for Fulham. You should bear that in mind. They will struggle in the 2 games without him. Very confident of that. And oh, look, the Arsenal in 27. God, it goes in their favour. I swear to God, such.
Chelsea, Southampton. Who needs a manager?
Well, I've referenced back to what I'd said about Lucy Hynett when she tweeted the other day. Can we have some of this no manager bounce? And there you go. You've got it, Lucy.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Really pleased for our Southampton correspondent, Matt Samuel, who it was his birthday Saturday as well. So a brilliant birthday present.
Nice.
I did a bit of investigating on Ruben Selles, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk that he could get offered the job because
do you know
players
what?
like him, and
He looked the part.
he likes a Southampton way. Yeah, there's a lot of talk that actually they're just going to go straight to him, or at least let him keep it till the end of the season.
They might do. For the benefit of those on YouTube, do you think you can sit any more to one corner of the screen?
Oh, am I? Do you know what? I changed the view so that I can see the timer, and I can't see myself anymore.
You was about to disappear out of shot, basically. Yeah, I did a bit of investigating on him last night. He actually originally got into coaching as a fitness coach. Quite interesting. Okay. And he'd been around various places, Greece, Denmark, loads of countries, right? And he was appointed as Hasenhüttl's assistant last summer. And obviously stayed at the club. I'm assuming he stayed at the club when obviously Hasenhüttl was sacked. And this feels like one where it's gone back to basics. He basically played Hasenhüttl's system at the weekend, more of a 4-2-2-2. Ward-Prowse spoke after the game about kind of simplified it to what we know. And yeah, look, they had some scary moments in the second half where Chelsea obviously could have scored, particularly the Sterling header, which Romain Perraud cleared off the line and stuff. But that back to basics, the whole club would be lifted. The fans in the shed end after the game were singing like Ruben Sellers, Red and White Army and stuff, right? So maybe just go with it. He looked the part. He looked like, he didn't look like an interim manager. I know we shouldn't necessarily judge by that, but he looked like he dressed well. He spoke well. He looked like a manager. He spoke like a manager. So I wonder if they might, now the Jesse Marsh talks have obviously broken down and the positive result, and if they're given this big game at Leeds, and if it goes well, then you've got momentum. So I wonder if he might stay in the job. Ward-Prowse is 6.2. And I think we have completely overlooked that Southampton have their own double in 27. So that you can invest in them now, this week. Then it's Leicester 26. Then it's double 27. 28 fixture against Tottenham's obviously unlikely to happen. But then there's every chance it will be double again in 29 of West Ham away and Tottenham at home. And JWP, the fixtures don't matter. So just consider that. But I still find he would be a difficult buy over other cheaper players who have got other fixtures around his price at the moment. I bet he does well over this period. 1 goal now off of David Beckham's free kick record in the Premier League. Remarkable. Him and Leo Messi are the two best on the planet, basically. There you go. There's some proper company to be put in for free kicks.
He'll overtake Beckham. There's no doubt about
that. I would think so. When's that Tottenham fixture? It's probably going to be that. For Chelsea, this is more the headline here, isn't it?
We were all thinking 3-0 comfortable win for Chelsea.
Why wouldn't we?
Yeah.
I was looking at it felt like all of Twitter, and again, that's small percentage. Felt like everyone was buying João Felix this week, and I was like, I want to do that as well. Like, there's no way I can make it happen. This doesn't make sense. And I was envious of it. It was the first time in a while I was like, this one's gonna hurt, you know. Even though he's a differential, it's like, this one's going to hurt because I know it, because I've got confidence in it. And yet, he wasn't involved in a lot of the key moments that Chelsea had at the weekend. It certainly was a gamble to go on him. Pressure has turned now on Potter, where that was one too many results bad for Chelsea. They played well in Dortmund last week, but they weren't good at the weekend. And yeah, sure, you can point to the chances in the second half and stuff, but a lot of it flat. A lot of it really flat. However, a note of caution. In their last 5 games in all competitions, they've taken 73 shots. They've had a XG of just under 8 and have scored once. Now, you joked about it earlier, Brighton are back and stuff. It feels a bit like that, doesn't it? They haven't been quite as bad as the results might suggest. That said, what have they scored? I mean, obviously it's 1 goal in those 5 games. They've had a few 0-0s in there and stuff. Go on, Serge, what are you going to say?
I was saying against us was the goal.
Yeah, João Felix's goal, obviously, against yourself. I mean, they should have had a penalty in that game as well. And I don't think that's on that XG. But yeah,
they're not the only ones that should have had a penalty against West Ham in recent times. Just saying, we'll get to that in a bit.
Look, my opinion was, I suppose, the one thing I know has been a lot of focus on how much spending they've had and stuff. And I know they primarily bought young players. So you say, okay, Potter's there to kind of build them and integrate them in. But I still just felt spending that amount of money, was at odds with the player, with the manager you've put in charge of the football team. Basically, he's got too many players there, too many players. On Friday, it became clear to most of us on Twitter Friday night with large leagues that Reece James, Thiago Silva, Mark Cucurella, and Hakim Ziyech weren't going to be in the squad. James, we can say probably rested. Thiago Silva, we can probably say the same. Mark Cucurella was getting booed by his own fans in Dortmund. Ziyech, they have a very much a love, generally hate relationship with. Although I thought he'd been playing all right, actually, since the World Cup for them when he's played, and gives them that kind of balance where they can move between the hybrid systems. They can do it better when Ziyech plays. But yeah, you're leaving those 4 out the 18. How big's your squad? Obviously, players come back to fitness now and stuff. So yeah, there's a few Chelsea fans who want out now, and obviously it's their big game on Sunday at Tottenham. And if that goes badly for them, I don't think the Chelsea fans in the stadium are going to hold back, because we've seen that in the past when they lost at Fulham. You could see the real anger in the away end, and there's every chance that will be the same if they lose at Tottenham at the weekend. By the way, let me tell you now that Chelsea will win at Tottenham at the weekend, and I'll probably explain more why I think that will happen in a bit. So we have big rotation from an FPL perspective of Chelsea players. We'd warned particularly with Reece James that schedule-wise, Dortmund and then this, there was every chance he wasn't going to start. Chelsea will play their strongest team at Tottenham. They've now got a week off, and they've got a week off afterwards. That's one reason why I think we'll do well next week. Havertz benched. There were 45 minutes returns for Wesley Fofana and Raheem Sterling. The Wesley Fofana one's particularly interesting for those who've gone for Badiashile. We don't have the info yet on what the favoured centre-back pairing will be. We know Thiago Silva is one of them. They have a cup final tomorrow. Thiago Silva's playing. If Wesley Fofana's fully fit, which I'm sure he's probably not yet, who starts alongside him? Yeah, this was my big concern with Badiashile, that we don't have this information on Fofana. Clearly, Fofana's going to be ahead of Koulibaly, and presumably Trevor Chalobah as well. As Palaqueta picked up a horrendously nasty injury from an accidental but very dangerous collision with Sekou Mara. Hopefully, obviously, touch wood, he's all right, but I mean, he was down for a good 10 minutes or so. That's only going to help Reece James minutes going forward, but the spacing is good now where he could be considered for you, Reece James. It's another one, though. I don't know how, if you're going in this week suddenly, you look at the fixture and you don't think, oh, I want to gamble one of the Liverpool players instead. Yeah, but cool. I think they'll beat us Sunday.
I'm not so convinced, but we'll see as we get closer to the
I don't think they'll sack him, by the way. Not yet. If it goes badly next Sunday, then maybe, but not yet.
No. Everton 1, Leeds 0. I mean, this was obviously a battle at the bottom. Leeds are the ones that usually create a lot of chances and have a lot of attacking flair going forward, yet they didn't manage a single shot on target in the game, James. And
Sean Dyche, Everton, mate.
Everton had a far superior XG as well, coming in at nearly 1.5.
Yeah, they deserve to win.
Half. So yeah, not the way that I thought it would go in the end, to be honest with you. But fair play, Everton now out of the relegation zone, a little bit of breathing space, and they'll feel confident now with Sean Dyche in there that they're going to get out of this comfortably.
I don't know. After the Villa game, fixtures get rough again, really rough for Everton. So important
Sean Dyche
they get
at his best, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, look, Sean Dyche will give them a chance in any football match.
Yeah.
So I think that there was a bad reaction to obviously the defeat at Liverpool, but if you could certainly have offered any Everton fan prior to the Arsenal game 6 points from the fray, even losing to their rival, they'd have taken it, considering the circumstance. Yeah. So Neil Maupay started this one, and the Evertonians that I've seen have said that he played okay. I don't suggest that we suddenly consider that as a double game week option. I think it's probably defensively if you are looking. Jordan Pickford is right on radar for me. Is 4.5 or 4.4, Suj? I think it's 4.5. He's right on radar for me, Jordan Pickford. A lot are going to go to Tarkowski, who's the obvious threat from set pieces, has gone up to obviously 4.3. If you wanted an offensive one, he's flagged at the moment, but Onana at 4.8 keeps breaking into the box. And I'd be conscious of him if it enabled something else for you. If you're looking at something this week going, I need an enabling midfielder who's going to cover me the double, cover me the blank, and it gets me to player X, he's one I'd maybe consider, but I certainly wouldn't just go to him outright. Patterson played for the under-21. I know he'll be sitting in a lot of teams. Played for the under-21s on Friday. Your problem is Seamus Coleman just scored a worldie. We'll never know for certain if he meant it or not, but Seamus Coleman, I'm fairly certain, will start against Aston Villa.
You think that maybe Sean Dyche is favouring his leadership and experience and know-how rather than throwing Patterson straight back in?
I just can't see off the back of a clean sheet. Think of Sean Dyche Burnley historically, right? When they had a good result, what did he always do?
Same again.
Same team.
That
will almost certainly, the team starting against Leeds will almost certainly be the team starting against Aston Villa. Almost certainly. Because that's just what he does. We always know it. Good result, he doesn't change. Even if he's had players come back in the past, say like Calvert-Lewin is suddenly fit again for Saturday, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a sub.
Yeah.
So the idea of Patterson coming in and starting against Villa, I'm afraid to say, is extremely unlikely. And there will be people who need him this week. Now, you may get a point. You may get 2-1 points and get you 2. And therefore, it may even be better to keep him. But I think there's others you'll be very tempted to move on to. Leeds were unchanged. Pascal Struijk not being back possibly didn't help the fact Junior Firpo was at left back. Not that he's completely culpable for the ridiculous Coleman goal. I think if you were to go in this week, probably Somerville at 4.2 is another one like a Nana. It might enable you something else.
Or Nonto.
Or Nonto, yeah, but I feel like
it's positional, isn't it? It depends whether you want a striker or you want a midfielder. I haven't ruled out Nonto because it's a Martial problem more than it is a which Leeds do I go for. Like I need to replace a forward, so I have to go to a forward, which means Nonto's the one that I could go to, and he's affordable.
So I don't know what I'm doing ship strategy yet, right? So at the moment, I'm just trying to think ahead and keep my options open. So at the moment, he's obviously not going anywhere for me. Perfectly reasonable to start him against Southampton at the moment. But my thinking of selling Kane isn't just about selling Kane and getting the immediate. It's about further on. When I want to make moves for 27, 28, if I keep Kane and I keep Nonto and I keep Haaland, no Tony 27, no Watkins 28, no João Felix 28. I need to leave myself open these possibilities for these players. And if I've sold Kane, I can leave open for the point that I want to do it, Nonto for Tony, Watkins, João Felix, for example. And I think you've got, unless you know what you're doing, and I'm not sure anybody can be 100% certain of it till the FA Cup games are gone, then I need to keep my eyes open for this sort of possibility. Just a note on Leeds are obviously scheduled to play Wolves in game week 28. Of the 6 games that can be postponed in 28, Leeds and Wolves at Molineux is the only one that can get brought forward to 27. It might happen. Might. I'd say unlikely, but we should be aware that it is a possibility. The reason that's a possibility is there is a minor backlog problem for Leeds. They've got a game with Nottingham Forest to rearrange. And obviously, one of themselves, Fulham, are definitely getting through to the FA Cup quarter-final because they play each other. They're also due to meet in 32. So when fixtures are announced for 29, we're unlikely to know if Fulham Leeds is obviously going ahead for 32 or not. In fact, we can't know. So we have to be aware of that problem. Leeds are also scheduled to play Manchester City in game week 35, which City could still be in we spoke about the Champions League teams in that week. We don't know the situation yet with the King's coronation. But bringing forward things like Southampton, Brentford, being aware of the Brentford backlog, makes me also think that Wolves Leeds is a minor possibility, should it be postponed in 28, to be brought forward in 27. It's not to say it's going to happen. I'd say it's unlikely, but we should be aware of the possibility. We should also be aware that if it's postponed and it doesn't get brought forward to 27, it could well be a fixture that goes into a random game week, such as game week 31, for example. We'll know more about this in circa 10 days or so.
Talk about Forest City, or you do, because I've had enough of City, to be honest with you.
You've had enough of City. Oh dear. Where do we start?
I don't care. I've had enough of City. I mean, it's I don't know. I really thought they were gonna win comfortably.
Well, I'm sure that's what we all thought, Serge. And to be fair, the game went as though they were going to win comfortably, right?
Yeah.
But it just didn't. I mean, the Haaland double miss where he's hit it into the ground and hit the bar, and then normally he'd fart on the ball and roll it in on the rebound, and he manages to blaze it over, is a very, very unusual one. Forest had City had so much of the game. I tweeted 25 minutes in looking, City had 87% possession in the first 25 minutes. So they established dominance really, really quickly. But like anything, if you don't get the second goal against anyone, you are always liable to put yourselves at risk. And the Forest equaliser was a disaster from a City perspective, where they got completely pulled and open part by a really good Forest goal, actually. It wasn't, when I heard Chris Wood equalise, I think, them idiots, cross into the back post or from a corner or something. But actually, it was a lovely goal from Forest's perspective. But there are so many individual errors from Manchester City in that goal that we could spend minutes pulling apart, which partly is because Bernardo Silva ends up in this out of position, left back position, steps out. Then Laporte's attempt at a tackle is absolutely pathetic, and it just escalates from there very, very quickly all the way onto Cole Walker taking his eye off the ball in terms of the back post as well. Such a bad goal to concede. And they'll be kicking themselves because they'd have been getting in the ground, the City fans, thinking Arsenal dropping points here. It's on. Get ourselves comfortably clear here. And then the day's completely
the other way.
And the day's completely turned on its head. City's Guardiola's substitutions at the end of the game were also pretty bizarre. So right at the end of the game, we brought Alvarez on for KDB, which I can understand, but then also factor, who do you most want to deliver the ball into the box at that stage of the game against the team that's defending deep? I think I want it to be KDB. And he brought Aki on for Foden. We've got Mahrez sitting there on the bench.
Who is in the form of his life at the moment and has been playing really well.
Bit weird. Another return for Jack Grealish. I did note an interesting stat on him that 8 of his 9 FPL returns have come in away games. It is another away game next against Bournemouth. And certainly, he's earned the trust a little bit more at the moment where he's going to play regularly. You know what normally happens when we say that about someone?
Same thing that happened to Mahrez this week just gone.
and the same thing that happened to Foden 3-4 months ago as well, right?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Get yourself into form, son, so I can drop you. Yeah,
I do. To be honest, it's mad. City are playing Bournemouth this week, and you're probably more thinking about selling their players than buying.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like this week, I really don't think, I always say pick your battles in terms of Haaland captaincy. This is definitely a battle to take on, isn't it? It's not that he can't haul at Bournemouth. Of course he can. But this is one where you haven't even just got one good option. You've definitely got two, really, in the likes of Salah and Saka / Odegaard, whatever, and Ketcher, whatever you fancy there from Arsenal. For Forest, it's now 8 games unbeaten in the Premier League. I did make a note that because we keep mentioning this long unbeaten run that they've had at home. They haven't had too many difficult fixtures in there. The most difficult on paper probably was drawing with Chelsea on New Year's Day. But this is another very creditable draw. And I think their home results are going to continue to be important for them if they want to stay up. Obviously, Wood didn't start. So they changed the system up a little bit. They obviously used him again at the back end. I wouldn't read anything into, they played so deep. That doesn't mean anything for how Forest are going to play at West Ham. They'll do something completely different. And they can go back to 4-2-3-1 we saw at Fulham, or they can go back to 4-4-3-1-2, for example. There's loads of different things they can do. The one that will influence FPL managers, a little bit like with Patterson, is Nico Williams. He's got more chance of starting than Patterson, is what I would say. Serge Aurier was taken off towards the end of this game. And I've seen before, historically, that Serge Aurier being taken off towards the end of games could well mean knock. Yes. Keep an eye on that. Williams could start at West Ham. So that's unlike the one with Coleman and Patterson. You've got a chance. You've got Williams, haven't you, Serge?
Yeah, and I'll be playing him. Unless I sell him, but I'm not likely to.
Well, the only other thing to say is that he has come on for the last couple of games against Leeds and City. So you've got a chance. You've got a chance of getting something there. That's clearer than the Patterson one, I think, for example.
Wolves 0, Bournemouth 1, James. They're obviously messing up the entire relegation battle. Wolves were supposed to beat Bournemouth so that Bournemouth could be considered dead and buried and make life a lot easier for West Ham, but they didn't. And so now the relegation
Guess
zone goes deeper.
you're thrilled by them results this weekend, are you?
They're all shit, mate, to be honest with you. All shit. But look, it doesn't make me change my opinion that I think Bournemouth is still likely to get relegated. But fair play, they got away points at Wolves, and if nothing else, it keeps Wolves within touching distance. So,
yes, absolutely does, and actually, it's worth saying Wolves come into a more difficult run on paper now. Admittedly, yes, double, but from a game perspective, Fulham away, Liverpool away, Tottenham at home, Newcastle away is now a tough stretch. They do have a good run after that from sort of game week 28 if fixture goes ahead against Leeds or not. It is a good run from then onwards. Bueno started at the weekend. I took that gamble, Such, and it was proven correct. Got me a whole extra 1 point this week. I wouldn't invest in him now for the double. Like if you're going Wolves now, I think it's Kilman or Dawson, isn't it?
yeah,
It's Kilman if you want to go to cheap. It's 4.4. If you want to go for the extra in terms of set piece threat, it's Dawson at 4.8. I wouldn't go Bueno now. I can see people have got, say, Rico Lewis, like you, thinking about that sort of move. You're going to go from one headache to another, I think, Suj.
yep.
And I think there should be alternatives to consider rather than just going for the next 3.9. Remember, it's not just this week that you'll want it. And Bueno will definitely get minutes. He might even start twice. But I think we've seen enough now where Aït-Nouri suddenly come back in that could happen again. And I wouldn't be keen on going in those. So Dawson or Kilman, listen, the price disparity between them is right. Kilman is a much bigger threat at set pieces. Any other one I'd maybe consider, I've seen a few people mentioning like Neves, Sarabia. I mean, just going for Wolves offensive player. I know they've been a lot better. It was like, 13 points from Lopetegui's first 7. Wolves offensive player.
Nah.
If I had to gamble one, I think I'd gamble Matthias Nunes, 4.8.
Okay.
That would be the one. Is it a price bracket that's more convenient where straight afterwards you can go, right, bench? And he has been playing a more offensive position. He's actually been playing on the left for them quite a bit recently. So if I had to gamble one, that's the one I'd gamble on. But to be honest with you, I've no interest in the likes of Cunha, Sarabia, any of them. Adama Traore, Daniel Podence back. It's also muddied by the fact, I know he wasn't in the squad at the weekend, but Neto was on the bench the week before against Southampton. He might have suffered a setback, but he's their best defensive player. So he's only going to muddy it for those guys in the attacking position. So I'd largely ignore. Marcus Tavernier back for Bournemouth with a goal surge, player we quite like. And they hadn't won a game since he last scored against Everton just before the World Cup as well. Big win for Bournemouth. Big win. It felt like some of the other results this weekend, theirs was quite quiet. And they weren't at their best. I mean, the base, I think that was it the only shot on target they had from Tavernier? It wasn't even a shot, was it? Come off like his hip or something. But those two, Solanke and Tavernier, will be important from. They've got Otara playing regularly on the right now is a threat. Traore playing in the hole is a threat as well. He's very, very cheap. You're not going to go and buy Bournemouth assets with Man City, Arsenal, and Liverpool in their next 3. Big result from that. For the moment, they need to come out that Liverpool fixture in 27 and be able to see
touching distance, one win or 3 or 4 points maximum away from safety. And I think they will be, because I don't think everyone else is going to particularly tear it up in the next 3 weeks and pick up loads of points.
Then from 28, their fixtures improve, and you say, oh, Villa away. But chances are for Villa, season's coming to an end, let's be honest. Like, they're not going to qualify for Europe. They're comfortably safe. It's a sort of one. I've seen this before. Teams like Watford won at Villa last year, for example. I wouldn't be that stunned if Bournemouth went and got a result at Villa Park in game week 28, which should be a notable one, perhaps for free hitters, because I think if you free hit in 28, you do go for some Villa players and probably not Bournemouth. Yeah, big win for them. Wolves, I think it's probably the easiest one from a double game week perspective in terms of where do you go. You're going to be looking at one of the defensive guys. I think if you like Fassad, I'd rather go for Pickford at this stage.
Newcastle 0, Liverpool 2. A lot of people will be coming off Newcastle now anyway, unless it's Trippier and you've got a lot of value, because they blank this week with the Carabao Cup final. But I suppose I say unexpected. I didn't think Liverpool were going to win with a clean sheet as comfortably as they did. But then when Pope got sent off, maybe that kind of does dictate the game a little bit.
Well, it was already 2-0 at that point, to be fair.
No, but psychologically as much as on the pitch, because he's a big player. Your goalkeeper getting sent off, and when it's Nick Pope, I think it has a big impact on the rest of the team mentally.
But they played well.
In terms of getting back into it.
They still created over 2 XG. So, I mean, admittedly, Almiron had a magnificent chance right early in the game. It was a great save from Alisson. And then suddenly the game was something completely different. Liverpool scored straight after that. The red card was hilarious. He's come out and he's a good sweeper keeper, Nick Pope, in terms of people don't think he's coached on his feet. But in terms of coming off his line from direct balls like that, he's actually very good at it and sweeping up the danger because he doesn't piss about, right? He'll just smash it out for a throw-in. And the ball obviously bounces a bit quicker than he expected. So then he knows he's committed to a diving header. But it ended up going so low that he should have just been sticking his foot out, right? And obviously he's missed the header. And I think the way it bounced, he probably would have got away with it, even though it hit his hand almost straight away because it was clearly unintentional at that point. He's tried to head the ball. So I think if he just left it there at that point, he might have got away with yellow. But once he dragged it back, it was just instinct, wasn't it? He'll know himself. He's not fault. I'm going to take the red card here.
No.
He's just acted on like an impulse reactionary thing. I'm a goalkeeper. I use my hands in a split second and reacted. I've got to get the ball. And it's heartbreaking for him. He's going to miss the cup final, which does mean he won't be suspended in the Premier League for the trip to the Etihad in game week 26. And it's a kind of car crash story where they can't play Dubravka because he played for United in the cup. Can't play Darlow because they've let him go on loan to Hull. So we've got Loris Karius is going to play the cup final if he's fit. I don't know if he is. I presume that he is.
Yeah,
but yeah, actually,
Manchester United pretty clear favourites for the cup final now.
Well, I think United's form
would have made them favourites anyway. I think it's just a little bit clearer now.
Newcastle can beat them. Look, remember they'll have Guimaraes back in the cup final and stuff as well. They played with the same system. Elliot Anderson played in midfield, who's a player I've been aware of for quite a while. Dan Locke, one of our patrons, Bristol Rovers fan, and they had him on loan there last year. Got rave reviews. He's very highly regarded. It was a shame, obviously, it was him that got taken off, obviously, following the red card. They dropped Almiron into a midfield three. Worked his socks off, bless him. He always does. Did a really good job for the team. And he left St. Maximin and Isak up front. And them two caused a real threat. St. Maximin, very good, actually. He played really, really well. And Liverpool, to be honest, it's quite sloppy. Because the game should have been won far more comfortably than it was. Alisson made 3 big saves in the game. Van Dijk being back is obviously a big bonus for them. And it did start the game really well. What stood out most in the start of that game, and I'm sorry, the FPL managers probably want to turn this off at this point, but Trent's deliveries in those first 20 minutes, he put one cross in, which was a joke, literal joke, completely undefendable. And he could have had a much bigger haul than what he was getting. It was obviously his pass for Núñez's goal, where Newcastle very rarely got split at the back. And normally really narrow. Trippier just got his eyes caught to the far side and it opened up a gap. And Trent, listen, give him time on the ball. He's good enough to pick the pass out. And he probably is the one for 25 to gamble because it's what it can be, right? It's not all Trent's worth paying 7.3 for. He's not really, but it's the capability of what he could be on corners, free kicks, the edge of the box, those sort of things. I'll quote Late Riser from the FPL. I will always say, put yourself in a position to be lucky.
Yeah.
And so Trent's very much in mind. That said, and one of the big cautions on Liverpool players, the way this game happened and panned out with them playing against 10 men so long is really good news for the double because it's Newcastle, Real Madrid, Palace, Wolves, then Man United. And you just look at those fixtures and say, well, if there's going to be rotation, where is it? In the double. Now, it's not to say that any of them will be rotated. Mo Salah could play all of these games, for example, but it applies to almost every outfield player other than, I think, Van Dijk. So people looking at Joe Gomez, he's 4.3. Yeah, listen, Matip's probably going to play one of the games. He's not on the table, right? Núñez, we need to wait and see what the report is on his shoulder injury. If he's ruled out for a few weeks, I think it opens up Diogo Jota like that, and I'd be very interested because no one will have him. 8.8 is 0.1 more than Núñez. If Núñez is ruled out for 3 weeks, for example, very, very interested in getting Jota. Robertson, of course, is the alternative in between Trent and Van Dijk. He's 6.8. Alisson's 5.4. It's reasonable. And the other interesting quirk to Liverpool, and why I'm very interested in gambling all say 3 of them, is obviously if Leeds did beat Fulham in the cup, they play 28 as well, Liverpool at home to Fulham. And if I'm then in a position where I'm looking at 28 at the end of 25, and Liverpool's game is on, and I'm sitting there with 3 Arsenal, 3 Liverpool already, I ain't doing shit for 28, am I?
No, you're covered.
I'm going through, and then I'm keeping my Liverpool assets for a little bit, and it might be that I need to wildcard 29 to get away from that, for example. So I'm tempted, and if I go down that route, then essentially the Fulham Leeds Cup result probably decides on my chip strategy, actually. But yeah, I'm tempted, very tempted, and it's that prospect that will add to want to dive into Liverpool this week. So I think almost definitely Salah for me. I'd quite like to hear that Nunes was out, and I think I'd really gamble Diogo Jota. And I'd like to gamble one of the defensive ones as well.
Talk about Man United 3, Leicester 0, James. The 2 teams between them, I don't know this to be factually correct, but I'm going to say it anyway. I reckon their combined XG is more than West Ham for the entire fucking season that I've seen so far. 6.1 XG, 7 big chances for Manchester United, 4 of them that they missed.
What did you say, XG for Man United?
No, 6.1 combined.
Oh, in the game. Yeah, it's huge. It was the most shots in the Premier League game for 7 years.
It was 4.4 odd for Man United and 1.6 odd for Leicester. 6.1 between them. But obviously all of the goals went in. Manchester United scored them all. But 7 big chances, hit the woodwork. Yeah.
Yeah, Leicester started really well, and I'm not surprised based on what I saw at the King Power the weekend before. I really did think they would give United some concern, which part way I never considered captain Rashford for a second, in all honesty. Not surprised that they went unchanged. They might change that up now to bring Tielemans and or Samari back in the team to firm that up against Arsenal. Because what is clear, unfortunately, if you're thinking about Arsenal assets for this week and your offensive ones, yeah, they're going to get chances against Leicester. But I also think Leicester are capable of beating Arsenal because offensively, if they do get it right and finish the chances, you look at yesterday, I mean, they could have been 2-0 up before United entered the game, and then you've got a very different football match.
Very different game, agreed. But
very
different.
Half,
they weren't as potent, and Manchester United did pull away.
And Arsenal, if you think, I probably removed the Manchester City game, but Villa didn't start well. Brentford didn't start well. Everton didn't start well. If they start slowly at the King Power, they might be in trouble. I think they'll probably create too many chances not to beat Leicester at the moment. But again, Leicester will give them concerns. You're not going to look for Leicester players this week, I don't think. And you're probably not unless they lose to Blackburn in the Cup as well. But Iheanacho, Maddison, etc. should stay on radar. Maddison said that De Gea's saves and then Rashford's goal broke them. It broke them mentally because they knew there should have been a couple up, was suddenly 1-0 down, where Rashford's had one chance, finished it expertly. And he generally is no exaggeration to say he's in the form of his life. He's outscored half the league since the World Cup.
Yeah.
And he is, as I said, he's going to be going forwards a regular captaincy option. I mean, take 27 now. Let's say Tony doesn't have the yellow card issue hanging over him. You want to captain Tony away to Everton and Southampton? Or do you want to captain Rashford at home to Southampton? Both got Southampton in there.
Rashford.
But you just look at Rashford and the form and go, it's too hot.
Yeah, everything he's touching has turned into goals.
Yeah, he's worth saying that Southampton fixture would fall in between Europa League last 16 ties if they obviously see off Barcelona on Thursday night, which they may well do, for example.
Bruno
United
Fernandes as well at 9.8.
Well, I still think for most people, again, like we've got KDB like me, or I've got Fernandes, you probably are looking at getting Mo this week. He's obviously got a blank. No one's going to have huge value stored up in Bruno Fernandes.
I'm keen to figure out when I'm going back to try and get him in my team, though.
What, Bruno? Not so fussed, to be honest, Suj.
27, 28?
Well, 28 you probably won't have a fixture. 29 if to double the first part, the double will be
West
Newcastle.
Ham in the Cup, you sure?
Maybe
not.
Yeah, but Brighton will beat Stoke, so it won't matter.
Fine, okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if you do turn them over in the Cup, because you're going to have to rotate in that fixture. Like, I don't think Rashford plays against you in the Cup. There's got to be a break. He's so important for them now. There's got to be a break somewhere. When I say I don't think he'll play, probably be a sub, right? He'll play half hour or whatever, just to give him a little bit of a break. And that is a fixture where you can expect United to rotate a little bit in the cup, I think. Yeah, I wouldn't hold Bruno Fernandes for the sake of holding Bruno Fernandes. I think he's probably one that opens up the possibility for you to get other doublers this week. But yeah, he's in great form. Basically played on the right yesterday. 2 brilliant assists. Ten Hag did something really interesting where he's used Weghorst a little bit as a 10. Wasn't overly working. He ended up playing Jadon Sancho as the 10 and left Fernandes out wide in the second half. And it really worked for them. And Leicester are a team who, the longer the game goes on, can look quite vulnerable in terms of turnovers if you can attack them quite quickly. And yeah, Arsenal are another team who may well do that at the weekend. Serge, have you muted?
Yes, I have. Last but not least, I may as well mute myself in a second. The Planet FPL Derby, James, at your place, a comfortable 2-0 win for Spurs in the end. Yeah, I don't know. Just it's deflating, I think, is what I would describe it as from a West Ham point of view.
That it? You not anything else you want to say? Come on, let rip a bit.
You know, interestingly, if you look at Downs, Souček, and Declan Rice's heat maps, they are hotter in the Spurs half of the pitch than they are in our own half of the pitch, which I think is quite. It's not how I would have seen the game, but sometimes statistics and what have you can.
Ball touches though, right?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily where they're standing on
Positioning.
The pitch.
Yeah, I get that. But still, I wouldn't have expected that. There's 2 ways of looking at it, really. When I look at the lineup, I'm like, okay, I understand if you've got Skip and Højbjerg in midfield, by putting the three in midfield in Souček, Rice, and Downs, can they outnumber the 2 that you've got there and maybe give us a bit more control in the middle of the pitch? So I didn't mind the strategy of trying to do that. The problem is that it leaves us with no attacking threat whatsoever. So Bowen and Antonio as 2 attacking outlets is not good. Like they haven't scored goals all season. They haven't been in good form all season, and they're hugely isolated. I mean, Longley, Dyer, and Romero, I think can deal with Antonio and Bowen reasonably comfortably. And
I'm not sure they can deal with anyone, but
well, look, they were comfortable yesterday. My biggest regret is when I saw the lineup, I didn't put any money on a Tottenham clean sheet. I just didn't think we were going to score. I thought we'd do all right, we'd make it look nicey, but eventually make a couple of mistakes, and you'd win because you had the greater firepower. And just to call out, and then they're talking about, they did an interview on the West Ham Twitter channel with David Moyes afterwards, and the interviewer says we haven't been conceding goals like that. So David Moyes, his question was, we haven't been conceding goals like that. And what the fuck are you talking about? Every goal we've conceded recently is when we play 3 at the back. We don't know how to defend the channels. Good strikers can get in the channels. Callum Wilson ran in between Bonner and Kehrer and gets in behind. João Felix, okay, it was off a set piece, but he went in and managed to get in behind Ghostin in. Ben Davies through to, or the ball through to Ben Davies down a channel. Kane slipping it to Son through a gap between 2 of the 3 centre-backs. All the goals are going in the same way. Like, we can't defend the channels. The centre-backs, the 3 centre-backs don't know what to do when a striker gets in between them. If you've got someone that can thread a ball through, you'll score against us. Really.
So what you're doing is you're telling me to buy Brennan Johnson. Is that what you're telling me?
Does he know how to run a channel or thread a ball between a channel?
Well, he'll be the one on the receiving end, most likely. Fine then.
Yeah. Okay. And if Zuma's not fit and Kehra's playing there, that gap between Bonner and Thilo Kehrer, buy the fucking Titanic because you could sell that through them.
So you're not going to tell anyone to buy Emerson Palmieri then?
Not good enough. Is where we're at. Like, it's a different game against Nottingham Forest at home. Completely different game. And I don't think we'll play that formation, right? We won't play 3 midfielders in there. We'll play 2, and he'll put Ben Rama back on the pitch, is my opinion. But I wouldn't be going near West Ham at the moment, to be honest with you. Wouldn't be going near them.
So no Emerson for you.
No, why would I be buying him as a replacement for Rico Lewis or something? Because he's cheap.
Oh, well, I don't know. I've got loads of people in my DMs saying, "Shall I buy Emerson Royal?" So
Oh, Emerson Royal. I'm talking about Emerson Palmieri.
yes, you can all come and join my Emerson Royal fan club. All these people have been giving him stick untold week after week. Yeah, he's been absolutely brilliant for us since Pedro Porro signed, ironically. It's free because he was outstanding in the San Siro in Milan as well. And he was great. Yes, his defensive work is so good. Stop judging him all the time on the offensive stuff. Everything has to be judged on offensive. One of the things that I found really strange is with your selection yesterday is we don't concede goals down that side.
Okay.
Emerson's side. When Emerson played, we don't concede goals down that side, generally speaking. But he moved Bowen to that side. When clearly we're much weaker on the other side. Didn't make sense to me. We concede, it's not to say positionally where we concede the goals, but so many of the goals that Tottenham concede are attacks that build up on the right-hand side of the pitch rather than the left. You can go and check it out. What Moyes tried to do with your system was, I don't really want to call it hybrid because it's not. He played Downs in a front three, right? He played him as the.
We done it earlier in the season.
He moved. It might have been times where it looked like it was free in midfield. It wasn't particularly. Bowen played as the left forward, and Downs played as the right forward. That's how you set up without the ball. But with it, the idea was to get him transferred with Souček. So you had this long out ball to Souček. So Souček regularly was going into the right-sided forward position from like goal kicks and stuff to give West Ham a target. So Souček and Downs were, because I've seen a lot of heat maps yet recently, and I was like, this don't make sense what West Ham are doing. And this is obviously partly what it is. It's getting Souček where you can use him aerially, both offensively and defensively. But if I'm honest, Serge, yeah, you were pretty piss poor, actually. That said, at half time, and apologies to anyone who watched the game, because particularly the first half, it was fucking dreadful. What a shit game of football that was. And so that was.
We predicted that.
Yeah, you was warned.
We did say it was going to be crap.
We, as two teams who don't want the ball. So he's West Ham Tottenham games. I know people remember Lanzini's and the 2007 game and stuff like that. Actually, over the last couple of years, Tottenham West Ham games have been crap largely. I'm only concerned about you from set pieces. That's the only way. Always the same. I said it to you before. Oh, don't give them up set pieces when it's 0-0, stuff like that, because you are a big dangerous threat from them. Not that you overly were yesterday, actually.
We haven't been all season.
I actually thought. Do you know what? If people wanted to punt Jared Bowen for one game, I don't mind that. Like if I was free hitting this week, I'd strongly consider him. Because I think it's the sort of game he can haul in. Forest away from home, shite, really.
Okay.
And it's a big game for you. You've got to win, really. You've got to win with what's to come in the fixtures, particularly some of these away games.
And you know what? I think we will.
And I agree with you.
It's the stupidity of it.
I agree with you.
We're just flat. It's like
I still don't think for a moment you'll go down.
Me neither. But
maybe you should start getting worried though.
But there's no joy along the way at the moment at all.
Would you sack him?
Would I sack Moyes? If we lose to Forest, I think it has to be that.
I think it might be curtains. Yeah, could be.
I think it has to be. And it's not with like anger or frustration or bitterness or anything. It is what it is. Sometimes players get tired of the same message, and you got to just mix it up, because I still think the players are far better than the performances on the pitch are showing. There's just something missing. And when I see when the interviews don't make sense, and I'm like, what you're seeing and versus what we're seeing is completely different, then it worries me. Where they're trying to paper over the cracks with some of the comments that they make, shit like it was fairly even the first half, we could have gone in leading. I'm like, it's probably a true statement, but you don't really believe it. You're saying it because you think you can get away with papering over the cracks.
Okay, let's talk about Tottenham for a bit then. Second half performance was good. I mean, I'm more likely to sell Tottenham than buy. A few surprises in the lineup. The biggest one was Oliver Skip starting instead of Pape Mate Sarr, which we'd got wind on Saturday night was what was likely to happen. And Oli played really well. I thought him and Pierre were good, because I'll come back onto it with why I still think Chelsea will give us problems. But you didn't give us the issues in terms of that midfield area where you think, oh, you've got an extra man. It never showed up. And the two of them played well in midfield. Clement Longley played left-sided centre-back, which meant Ben Davies played left wing-back. And I spent most of the game wanting to kill myself about that, Such. Because that's numbingly defensive to play Ben Davies at left wing-back. And yet, it was Conte ball that created with the first goal, right? One wing back into the other. That's exactly what he's looking for. What a pass from Højbjerg into Davis. One of the best passes you'll see all season. And Ben, who didn't play great, I didn't think, actually, in the key moment, kept calm, and Emerson obviously stroked it in. Emerson Royal's 4.9. And I don't quite know why people want to buy him. I've had people DMing me asking me, like, do I need to get him in quickly? If you look at his returns over the last number of weeks, yeah, sure. It looks great. You got a 9 in there at Fulham. You got the 7 in there against Man City in the double. There's also a 6 for the clean sheet against Man City. So people looking at like the last 5 games are going, oh my God, he's got 38 points. Let me tell you, honestly, one bad performance, he'll be quickly out the team. Because Tottenham have not spent 40 million on Pedro Porro for him to sit there all season. They've got him in, and Emerson's performances against City, Milan, and again at West Ham have been extremely good. Extremely good. And he deserves to keep his place. And you know, I was really unhappy that it didn't start at Leicester. And oh, look, did we start conceding goals down that side of the pitch against Leicester? Yeah, absolutely. So I think he'll stay in, but honestly, Conte's jumped. And I know Conte's not there at the moment, but he'll still be picking the team. If we do badly against Chelsea, don't be surprised if afterwards we go to Wolves and it changes. Or Nottingham Forest at home in 27, it changes. We're unlikely to have the fixture against Southampton in 28. If it's a double in 29, does Emerson play both in the double? Very doubtful. So I'd not be going there. Yeah, his returns recently have been good. He's playing really, really well. But I would not be buying him for FPL. There's got to be better assets you can go and buy this week. Teams have got doubles or doubles coming up. No, I'm not keen on buying that. And listen, if he gets another haul at the weekend, great. I'll be apologising to absolutely no one. I'll just be happy about it. Harry has said, I'm thinking of selling, but not because I want to. More just because of I need to open up the money, possibly. Richarlison obviously started instead of Sonny. Richarlison wasn't good. To be honest, and it's not the first time this has happened where Sonny's been left out and then come on and made a big impact. That hit that there where he's kind of like super sub late in the game. I mean, when he's kind of 100% fitness at that point, and he's so explosive. Richarlison, I thought, really fluffed his lines in terms of standing. Kulusevski got better the longer the game went on, but he's missing something at the moment. It's not quite there. So I think largely Tottenham players are probably avoidable. Forster's obviously going to play for a bit in goal at 3.9, but he's only going to give you a headache further down the line. And I don't think the fixtures are good enough to make me think, oh, I'm desperate to get a Tottenham play. You know, I wouldn't buy Forster over Pickford this week. I'd buy Pickford, to tell you the truth. But yeah, decent win, decent performance. Planet FPL Derby 1. You'll be fine, Such. On Chelsea and Tottenham. The reason I think, and I mean this honestly seriously, I think Chelsea will beat Tottenham on Sunday. Chelsea will absolutely box Højbjerg and presumably skip in midfield. They will dominate the ball. They will pick a far stronger team, like Thiago Silva, Reece James, going to be back in the team, etc. They're going to basically be full strength near enough, bar probably N'Golo Kante. And actually, 11v11 wants to do that, better team than us. And I know not playing right now, not playing well at all. Believe me, they will be motivated for Tottenham. And I think Potter will box Tottenham's 2 midfielding, and I think it'll be painful. I think it'll be a painful afternoon for us, and I would expect Chelsea to come and beat us probably 1-0 in another really, really shit game of football. So the idea of, oh, Chelsea are crap suddenly, Tottenham are really good again. Now listen, Tottenham are really average at the moment. The reason Tottenham are 4th is because Newcastle's dipped off and because Liverpool and Chelsea themselves have had terrible, terrible seasons. Liverpool, I would probably make favourites to go and get 4th now because they can get momentum. We spoke about this Friday, said if they win at Newcastle, they could be level with Newcastle by the time Newcastle play again, basically.
Yeah.
And then have the potential to go above them because Newcastle go to Man City in game week 26. And of course, there's a possibility for Tottenham to put a bit of a gap up where Newcastle might look at it and go, ooh, if Tottenham go to beat Chelsea and then go to Wolves and win, that looks like a big gap potentially if Newcastle were to get beat at the Etihad, which is no guarantee that they will, admittedly. I'd be very cautious about suddenly diving into Tottenham defensive assets and stuff like that. I wouldn't be thinking more about selling than buying. I really think Chelsea will dominate us. I desperately hope that I'm wrong. But that midfield is too weak and you didn't exploit it, Suj.
Yep. Well, yeah, let's move on from that. James, do you want to tell everybody what they've got to listen to, I should say, for the rest of the week? And I'm going to pick out 2 or 3 of the old questions that we had on Twitter to wrap up this show.
Yes, I shall. People's poll vote will be out for you by the time that you listen to this. There are 3 options. They are the Football Sustainability Index report on Premier League and Championship clubs by a fair game. It's essentially assessing their sustainability. We're going to have a little bit of chat about the white paper and what is the white paper. Also, this proposed Sheffield United takeover by Dozy Umbuosi. He's rich, but is he? And also concerns that's been highlighted to me about the future of Southend United, who might be going out of existence in the next 2 weeks or so, Suj, unfortunately. Those are your 3 options. We will cover the runner-up on our Money in Football podcast on Patreon this week, so choose wisely. Wednesday will be Sky. Thursday, Clash of Correspondents, Liverpool versus Wolves with Dan Lord, Bradley Parker. It is a Friday deadline, so I'll be doing the deadline stream at 5:30 p.m. on the YouTube channel. I will do an Ask James early on Friday morning, probably around about 9:30 a.m. as well. Our Patreon content this week includes the runner-up from the People's Poll Vote, Q&A today, a deeper Tottenham dive on Wednesday, Thursday's a quiz, and Friday will be our Game Week 25 differential show preview.
Tidy. James Noble wants to know, would you rather lose your sight or your memories?
Did you know that Mark Noble was pictured at Tottenham wearing a Tottenham pin badge?
Yeah, I saw that. Someone shared it to me on WhatsApp. It was on his scarf. Was it on his scarf or his jacket?
Like on his coat.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that's from.
What was that all about?
I have no idea. Weird. It might it could.
Does he not work for you?
Yeah, I'm sure, but we don't know the context behind it, right? It could be someone's given him a jacket to wear and it's got it on there or something. No idea. He might have done something where they asked him to wear it. Who knows?
What was the question?
That's like Arsenal fans getting hard-ons over Harry Kane in an Arsenal kit. You're like, really? Is that what's bringing you joy?
That's worrying, but yeah.
Exactly. Lose your sight or your memories?
I mean, to be honest, my memories of Tottenham are much better than what I watch at the moment, so I lose my sight, I think.
I think I'd lose my memories. I could see everything. I'd like to just see it all again, fresh. I don't think I'd like to lose my sight. I'd rather lose my memories and then see it all again.
I could get a different wife, couldn't I?
That's also true. And we're only going to do one more question, James, but it's 2 questions. One's from Jamie up in Stoke, and it's also combined with James Morrison's question. James Morrison's question: when are West Ham entering a volleyball league? Jamie Dodd says, will West Ham ever get a penalty given against them for handball ever again? That was a handball again.
Whatever.
Which it's just stupid, though, right? At this point,
you know me. I won't moan about refereeing decisions when it affects my own team.
Yeah, but the issue is not whether it affects Spurs or not. It's just the whole concept of VAR is
it a penalty? Yes, yeah, penalty. Yeah, I think everybody can see that.
Why is it not given?
I don't know. But he's mad to see you in 18th and you've had some fucking lucky calls this year.
Yeah, and look, people say they even themselves out. Quite often they don't. People are too easy to accept when it.
I tell you what, you're in trouble, trouble if they do even out.
Well, we've had a couple go against us, right? Chelsea, you could say, with
Maxwell Corner. Yes, you are absolutely
what's
right.
his name again? I can't even remember. He played like 3 games and fucked off, didn't he? So, yeah, you could argue 1 or 2, but Just frustrating. But before we turn this into another VAR podcast, let's not do it. Back at you tomorrow. People's poll. Stay safe. Look after yourselves. Hope you had a good game week and enjoy. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. As ever, play it your way. Be nice to each other. Cue music, please. Man shot.